were outside walking our dog the day that I got shot. We heard shooting in the distance, but we live in a rural area, so we didn't really think much of it. It's not unusual. And I was at the kitchen island, like at a bar stool, and talking to my mom. My sisters were there, and then basically chaos broke loose. I was shot by a stray bullet while sitting in my mother's kitchen. A stray bullet came through the window from neighbors that were shooting like 1,600 feet away. They were target shooting on a Sunday afternoon off a second-story balcony at a tree stump, and one of the bullets must have gotten away from them.
We heard this loud popping noise, and I actually felt debris. And so I'm looking up at the ceiling, looking for a light bulb that possibly blew up. And I heard Jamie say, "Take me to the hospital, take me to the hospital." And I'm like, "Jamie, what happened?" And I looked, because I was looking up, I looked down and there was like blood everywhere.
When I was immediately shot, I knew right away what had happened to me, which was kind of strange. I think God knows that I'm kind of like a need to know what's going on person. And the fact that I knew I was shot gave me just like a sense of peace and calmness, so I could like stay under control.
I was sitting on the couch in the living room. I heard a little commotion, but the Accra women are a little loud, so I didn't think much of it. And then I turned around, and I just remember seeing the blood like gushing out of her neck, and that's when I knew it was bad.
Anthony calls 911, and he's telling the lady that, "Hurry up, my wife is bleeding. We think a light bulb blew up." And I'm like, "No, Anthony, no, she got shot." And so that quickly was transferred on to 911. And it felt like forever till someone showed up for help. But Tony Luongo was the first one, and that just felt comforting to have somebody here to assist me.
I'm Officer Luongo. I was first on scene that day of the shooting. It was a beautiful day out. We got a call for a female that was shot in the neck. We didn't really get any further details as far as what happened, how she was shot, all that stuff. We didn't know if it was an active shooter situation. All we knew was somebody needed help. We had to get there, as fast as possible.
After I hung up the phone, I remember looking at my wife as her head was resting on the counter, and we looked at each other and we just both said to each other that we love you, and not knowing if that was going to be the last time or not.
I rifled through the trauma kit a little bit to see what sort of dressing, what sort of stuff was in there that could possibly help. But by then, most of the bleeding had stopped. So I just continued to hold pressure on the wound until EMTs got there and they kind of evaluated her further.
They took me to Reading Hospital, and I was taken there because they have a trauma unit. So they took me in and did x-rays and tests, all the initial stuff, and they saw the bullet still remained in my neck, and they saw that my neck was broken, but they weren't really concerned about that. They were more concerned about what kind of damage I have in my neck.
And they kept saying, "Well, you do understand, like, we don't have records to look back on to see what to do here, because we didn't have somebody with this severe injury survive, so we don't really have data," which didn't feel good to me as her mother.
I heard the nurses in the corner talking, and they said, "Do you want to tell her or should I?" And then one of them came over to me and said, "Jamie, we're getting you ready to airlift you to Philly." So I was taken to a hospital in Philadelphia where I spent the next 11 days in a neuro ICU.
They scheduled her for an angiogram, and depending on what it looked like, they were going to do the procedure right away. Once she got transferred to Philly, I spent a lot of time by her bedside and gave me a lot of time with just us two, and she was sleeping a lot, so I had a lot of time to pray and talk to God. And there was another patient that had a stroke, so that other patient was more priority, so hers got pushed back. The next day when she had her angiogram, halfway through the doctors came back and said that they found more damage that they didn't see before. I just remember thinking that that's just God's miracle, because if they would have did the procedure the day before, they wouldn't have seen the damage that day.
The C1 fracture, I broke the very top vertebrae in my neck. As a nurse, I knew that my neck being broken was very serious. If you break your C1 and it damages the spinal column, you'll be unable to breathe and therefore wouldn't survive. So I knew how lucky I was when I managed to break the bone without having it ever touch the spinal column. Even though I had to wear a neck brace for 6 weeks, that seems very minor compared to the other outcome. I never passed out. I stayed conscious the whole time, so I think that gave me confidence that I was gonna be okay. I truly did think that I wasn't gonna make it. Somehow, the bullet entered right below my earlobe, and when I feel where the bullet went in, all I feel is my jawbone, but somehow it's not broken, not even nicked or nothing. I said to Anthony, I was like, I can't believe after all this, I'm not mad at God, everything's okay. And he's like, Jamie, I know why you think or why you feel that way. And I said, how do you know? He's like, Jamie, I've been praying for you since this has happened, that you wouldn't hold this against God and that you wouldn't become angry or bitter. Even though this experience was scary, the overall outcome was beautiful.